Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers here to talk Seahawks football. And we are into the safety position group as far as looking at the roster and evaluating it. And team is entered into day 7 of 10-day overall OTAs. And there's not much news to report. There's a few guys that have been out the entire time. Some guys rotating back in that have had some nicks and cuts and bruises, mostly just running through drills. I noticed that Grubb said that about half the offense was installed at this point, which is, it seems to be about on target, I would say. And haven't heard anything on the defense since we heard it was only 20% a week and a half ago from McDonald, but I would imagine it's probably around the same area. How you doing? Welcome to the show, and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, doing good. This one will be a fun one. We're talking about safeties, and there's a lot of new names and a lot of new moving parts and a completely new scheme to discuss as far as how they're used. So, yeah, a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, I know there's some, interchangeable parts, a lot of moving parts, a lot of players that we're not sure exactly how they're going to be used, like Jarek Reed, Kobe Bryant. I did get a word from today's OTAs from Kandata that Bryant was back at work, and he was mostly used he was used both at safety and at nickel. So it sounds like his role is going to be similar to what it's been in the past, and we'll just see how, depending on the scheme and what the coaches are expecting of those players, if he fits in better with this scheme and this defense, or he's, he could be on the outside looking in. We'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, he's in a weird spot. He really is. He's in a spot where he's going to have to earn himself a spot on the roster because there isn't one sitting there for him. They just drafted 2 corners that they'd much rather keep over him. And as far as safeties go, he's got to pass some people to stay on the roster. Specifically, he's got to show that he can tackle, which was a major problem for him last year. And
cover. Yeah. Right.
So
let's talk about the 2 free agent safeties that we brought in. Now, Jamal Adams no longer on the roster. Quandre Diggs no longer on the roster. One of the most expensive, both of them actually, couple of the most expensive players on the entire roster. They jettisoned those guys. They opted to go less expensive, along with a couple of the linebackers, to really make the middle of the defense a lot more affordable and probably in line with league averages now, and bump some of that money that was spent in those areas into the defense and offensive lines. Mostly the defense, really, with Leonard Williams getting the bulk of the free agent money that was out there. I think about half of it that they spent on free agency went to him. But they did pick up Rashawn Jenkins, a 30-year-old, 6'1", 216 pounds, signed a 2-year contract, $12 million, gets about $6.5 million of that this year. Mostly injury-free during his career. 6 straight seasons as a starter, spent a couple of years prior to that kind of working in. Savvy veteran, experience, good ball skills, good tackler, hybrid safety skill set. So he can play both the back and the front, kind of move around all over the place, which is kind of what they're looking for this year. What do you think of that signing?
He's the biggest safety on the roster. You got him at 216.com has him listed at 220. I think 216 is a little more accurate as far as his playing weight. But I really like this signing. I get these 30, and he signed a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal. So it's not like this isn't a long-term solution. This was we need someone who can play and be good. But we're also not going to commit long-term to them. And just the price, the way it was, and getting a good player who's got a long track record of being good. I thought this was a great signing. It was also an exceptionally good signing because of who it kept him away from, because the team that wanted him most was the San Francisco 49ers. And he had left Seattle and gone to San Francisco for a meeting there. And Seattle was working on a contract with his agent and finally was like, all right, here, we got it all worked out. And the 49ers were like, wait, you're still here. Let us match it. And he basically looked at him and said, nah, if all you can do is match it, I'm going there. He's like, I'd rather play there. And taxes in Washington are a lot lower. So this is actually going to California would be a pay cut. So, and so he came to Seattle, and I love it because, they really wanted him, and the Seahawks were able to get the player anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great fit for Mike Macdonald. As far as how he wants to run the scheme, he wants to be multiple. He wants to move those guys around, disguises. These guys could drop back into coverage, play outside perimeter coverage once in a while, come up and into the box and rush the passer, stop the run, etc. So most of the guys we're going to talk about today, in fact, all of them, maybe except for Jarek Reed and Kobe Bryant, can play pretty much anywhere in this secondary. And that's a good situation for the team. I think they were, when you talked about Jamal Adams, he's really kind of limited. They were going to move on from him. There was just no question about that. Quandre Diggs underplayed the value of his contract. He was already going to be out the door as well, unless he was going to take a major pay cut. Now, he would have been a good fit in this defense as well, but they have a less expensive option now in Rashawn Jenkins. Mm-hmm. And then Julian Love is still here. Really came on last year, I thought. 26 years old, 5'11", 200 pounds or thereabouts, finished 2023 with 105 tackles, 4 pass defenses, and 4 interceptions. That statistically puts him even ahead of Rashawn Jenkins as far as productivity in a defense. And I think that 1-2 combo replaces about at least even from where Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, what they were giving you.
Oh, that's an upgrade.
And
those two,
upgrade.
Those
right.
two over the two guys they had that they jettisoned. This is an upgrade. Both of these guys are better than the guys that they're replacing. Now, there was a point in their career where the two guys that they're replacing were both very good. Jamal Adams is a 2-time All-Pro. Widely considered the best safety in the league when the Seahawks traded for him. He hasn't been that guy for 4 years. The guy that the actual guy that's being replaced, Jamal Adams, barely played, and when he did, he was awful last year.
And he remains unsigned.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why he remains unsigned. No one's going to spend money on him until he's 100% healthy and shows that he can play football. He didn't show that last year at any point. So, so he remains unsigned. And then Julian Love was the better of the two safeties between him and Diggs in Seattle's defense last year. So, I would
Diggs
say that
just kind of gave up. It seems like Diggs gave up on the season now. He's all talk about, being the best player and accountability and all that kind of stuff. But I saw him many times take plays off. I saw him laughing at other players, specifically Tariq Woolen on a missed tackle, and just kind of walking away from plays with little smirks on his face and stuff. I just got a bad vibe from him on that sort of thing. And, I don't think that he was the only one that gave up on the team and on the defense. But he was certainly frustrated. Now, can he still play at a high level? Maybe in the right situation. I don't think he's completely lost a step. I just think he lost interest in the defense.
Yeah. And he so 2 years ago, he was bad for the first half of the year, but then really came on in the second half of the year and played much better. And so we were thinking, okay, whatever it was, he's going to be better last year. And instead, he started out bad and stayed bad. He never turned it on like he did the year before and played good down the stretch. And it was really frustrating. So
And I can't tell if it's the scheme because a lot of players fell into that situation where they just weren't used properly. And was he covering for other players? Was he confused about responsibilities and so forth? I don't know. But
I don't
that's
know,
on
but
him,
even
really.
there was a point. There was a point later in the season where Adams was benched. Julian Love was getting 100% playing time and started to look really good after struggling a bit early in the year. And Diggs was still playing poorly. So I don't know. Can he still play? Probably, but I'm over it. I'm just done. I don't want to deal with Diggs and Adams anymore. And I'm really glad that they're gone. And I think that Jenkins and Love give you better. They're just better. Did they have as high of a ceiling as the other two? Probably not, but their floor is much higher too. And so I'll take it.
Well, nonetheless, when we'll round out this entire group, but when you look at the entire thing, this is probably the second weakest position group on the defense.
Yeah.
Behind linebacker. And when you when you combine those two, they're basically manning the middle third of the field as a position group. And so I'm a little worried about, that sort of stuff. But I have a feeling the scheme will kind of help and make up for it. And like you said, I think Julian Love being there, the consistency, Rashawn Jenkins, consummate pro. I think they'll be okay. Kevon Wallace, he was a backup until this last year, finally came on. I think it was a 4th or 5th round pick originally from Philadelphia. Moved around a little bit last year, Tennessee, Arizona. But he had 89 tackles last year, a few pass breakups, et cetera, mostly in the box, kind of a slot cover safety once in a while.
That's a lot of tackles for a safety.
Yeah. Yeah. It was about the same that Rashawn Jenkins had.
Yeah. Both of those guys, that's a lot of tackles for a safety. You want your linebackers getting those tackles, not your safeties. When your safeties are getting that many tackles, that means that something bad is happening in front of them.
Well, Tennessee and Arizona. So,
yeah.
There you go. But I like Kevon Wallace. I liked him coming out of college as far as kind of a in the box safety. He had a small stature at 5'11", 205 coming out, but he was the kind of guy that played bigger and hit really well and just kind of stuck his nose in there. Good special teams player of the last few years. And I'm just interested to see how he fits in because he's not a guy that you're going to drop back into coverage deep. And I'm just curious as to how they use him where he's got a specific skill set, not really a hybrid guy.
So I'm looking at Baltimore's safety usage last year, and they played 3 safeties a lot. In most games, the third safety has more than 50% of the snaps.
What do you attribute that to the fact that they're trying to get the best players on the field and their defensive backs overall, they have better safeties than corners? Or how does it work on our defense? Like you're going to want to get Tariq Woolen on the field, Witherspoon on the field. Michael Jackson's a big physical guy. Trey Brown needs snaps. You drafted a couple guys.
I think it has more to do with getting linebackers off the field, going nickel, and doing it with a safety rather than a corner at times because you need bigger guys that can tackle better and match up better,
cover tight ends and running backs.
Yeah, and so I just think that I look at that and I see them wanting to mix things up. And again, they disguise things, they move guys around. Guys have to be multiple. They need safeties that can play both up in the box and drop back. They need safeties who can also cover in the slot as if they were a corner. They want to be moving guys around and having guys do lots of different things. And I think with those 3 guys that we've already talked about, with Jenkins, Love, and Kevon Wallace, I think you're going to see a lot of 3 safety looks from Seattle.
So, with all of that said, does that point to a scheme situation, Keith, where they're going to run mostly zone coverage as we've seen in the past? It seems like I thought I heard that, Mike McDonald's defense and can feature more man coverage,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're moving people around all sorts of different positions, it seems like it would be easier if you just assign people zones and
Well, yes. So I think you're going to see a lot of zone. I think that's kind of just the state of the NFL right now. But you are going to see a lot more man coverage than you saw under Pete Carroll, who did practically nothing of that. But more importantly, what you're going to see is something other than cover 3. You're going to see cover 3. You're going to see cover 2. You're going to see cover 4. You're going to see cover 6, which is actually cover 2 on one side and cover 3 on the other. You're going to see things that are different. Pete Carroll ran cover 3 on every single play. That was his staple. That's what he thought was best. And when he first got to Seattle, it worked. It worked really well, but teams kind of figured him out, and he needed to evolve and kind of didn't. And so, and I don't know if that was Pete Carroll or his coordinators or a combination of both, but you can't just play cover 3 all the time like Pete Carroll did. So some people are like, oh, that, you can't play zone. It wasn't working. Well, the problem wasn't that they were playing zone. Most of the NFL is zone. The problem was that they played the same zone every single play.
The interesting thing this year will be that Carl Scott is back. And that's the defensive backs coach. He was one of the only coach that was retained off of the old staff. But he's running a new situation. Now he's perfectly capable. He's one of the smartest coaches in the league. Got some Nick Saban background in him and a great teacher overall.
That's the thing is he's known for being an incredible teacher. And just because, his guys were being used in bad situations doesn't mean he wasn't doing his best to teach them and get them to, do the best they could. But, if you're running the same coverage on every play and the other teams know how to beat you, being able to teach doesn't matter. It really comes down to just bad scheme above him.
So coming into his second season this year is Jarek Reed, the second, 23 years old, drafted in the 6th round in the 2023 draft, suffered an ACL in November of last year. He's still rehabbing from that. He's not going to be in OTAs. He'd be lucky, I think, to get into training camp and start the season on time. Seems like he'd be the perfect candidate to stash for later in the season if something should happen.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for him, in a way.
He sounds like a pup list candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So, guy that doesn't get the chance to practice in training camp and all of that, starts the season on the pup, is available after week 6 whenever the team needs him.
And mostly a nickel cover guy at this point, I would think. And same with Kobe Bryant. 3rd season now, 6'1", 195, got good size. First season he came in, I thought he played pretty darn good for a rookie. 70 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 forced fumbles in 2022. Completely fell off the planet in 2023. Only 18 tackles, no other statistical categories really touched for him. The question is, how will the coaches see this player? It's got a brand new coaching staff. He's really just got kind of a fresh start. But that doesn't necessarily mean the coaches will see him any different. Carl Scott is, in fact, back. It was his position coach. I'm just really curious as to how they view him.
Well, I think that's going to be really important for him in that Carl Scott knows what happened in the film room. He knows what happened on the practice field. Kobe Bryant went out, had a hard time making tackles and got himself out of position a bunch, but he was also trying to play a position he'd never played before. And there was a lot of bad going on on the coaching side of things as far as scheme and those kind of things. And so, Carl Scott knows what was going on the field, like on the practice field. Like he knows who this guy is. And if he is there saying, no, there's a spot for Kobe Bryant, he's going to be there. He's going to, be a guy that we can count on. I'm going to be okay with that because he knows better than any of us what we can expect out of Kobe Bryant.
And I think, if you take a look overall at the defense, who's got a real good opportunity to have a better year, a better season, kind of come out, be in position to be successful. He's one of the players that I would point to. Him and along with Tariq Woolen have the largest growth potential compared to their last year, compared to how they did the first year. Those guys both came in 2022. I thought both of them had an outstanding season. Obviously, Tariq Woolen was darn near all-pro level play and then completely fell off last year. Both of them did. So something inherently went wrong in that defense, I think, and it was broken beyond repair. And I think it affected certain players more than others. And so I'm interested to see how Kobe does because, by all accounts, he's a good player, good human.
Other than Witherspoon and Julian Love at the very end of the year, but other than Witherspoon, really, who wasn't bad last year at the back end of the defense?
Well, I thought Trey Brown played pretty good. Artie Burns actually played pretty good when he had opportunities to come in.
Yeah, he didn't play much. He only played 230 snaps all year.
Yeah, we're talking spotty play at best overall. Yeah, and Tariq Woolen or Witherspoon was just amazing.
Yeah. So other than Witherspoon, who in the back end of the defense wasn't bad. I mean, Woolen, fell completely back down to earth. Trey Brown was pretty good at times. Michael Jackson didn't get a chance to play until the very end of the year and looked okay. But Julian Love looked pretty not good for most of the year and then came on at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so really, it was for most of the year you had Witherspoon.
And you can say that about the entire defense.
Yeah.
Every player. Yeah. That's why we were 25th or 27th in most categories.
Or 30th. Yeah, because you look at the players that had really good years on defense for Seattle last year. You're going to see Witherspoon and you're going to see Boye Mafe. And I think we've reached the end of the list.
And Julian Love. I'm going to say Julian Love had a good
Julian Love for
season.
Half a season. Uchenna Nwasu for the first 6 games or whatever it was until he got hurt.
Even then, I thought he started slow. Yeah, and Derek Hall never developed as a rookie, just never really developed at all. Like he was the same player I thought in week 1 that he was in week 16. He played a little bit more, but he really wasn't very effective. Gerald Taylor came on again at the end of the season.
Counts. He played more at the beginning of the year.
Derek Hall did?
Yep.
Wow.
Weeks 1 through 4, he had, in terms of snaps, he had 20, 24, 33, and 27. And then after that, he only broke 25 3 times throughout the whole rest of the season. But most of them were 11, 6, 16, 4, 15, 10, 11. Like that's a stretch of 6 games in a row where he never had more than 16 snaps. So, he played more at the beginning than later.
Interesting. Yeah, and Dre Jones had one of his worst statistical years in the league. His first year as a big signing free agent. Yeah, I'm so excited to see these guys in this defense. Just the competency level overall going up. So a couple of undrafted guys, not this season, but holdovers from last year. Tayo Kota, the undrafted rookie free agent signing in 2023 out of Montana State, is the guy that came in and tested really well. He's got great speed. Didn't see enough of him last year to kind of figure him out a little bit.
He did not play a single snap on defense last year. He played in 5 games on special teams.
Right. And then beyond that, we just saw him in preseason. So looking forward to seeing what he does. And then Jonathan Sutherland's an interesting guy. Both of us kind of liked him. Showed out in training camp, played well in a couple preseason games, and then he got hurt. Pete Carroll basically said that he's very aggressive, very instinctive, really nice hits on special teams and defense. And then he got hurt, and then he was out. So
yeah, I mean, during training camp, he was playing really well to the point where, yeah, okay, Adams
you
was
could see him
hurt.
making the teams.
Adams was hurt and Diggs wasn't practicing, but still, Sutherland was out there with the ones. He was getting all the reps as the starting strong safety there for a couple of weeks of training camp. And then he got hurt. And that was the end of it. I really was hoping he would get healthy, get a chance to come back and show, because I liked what I saw from him. Okay, it was only practice in a couple preseason games. I get it. It's not like a huge sample size or anything, but I liked what I saw from him. He's got speed, and he plays really aggressively. He plays very physical. I think that this new coaching staff is going to love him the way because they want to be physical. And he plays really physical and does so with speed. Yeah. I think they're going to like him.
So one of the players, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit, but one of the players that Seattle has listed at cornerback for me is a player that might get a little hybrid look at safety, and that's Roe Torrance. He was a player I looked at a lot at Arizona State, being here in Phoenix, but he's 6'3", 208 pounds. And he's kind of a tackle machine, a physical guy, a big, huge wingspan, long arms, and a little slower in the 40 time. And I thought they might transition this kid to box safety, strong safety. And I haven't heard anything about that yet, but I thought it was just interesting. He's an undrafted rookie free agent pickup.
Yeah, see, he's a guy that I thought was draftable, especially with that height, 6'3". He's got good length as an outside corner. I think that there was a lot to like them. I had him having a draftable grade. I don't know about moving him to safety. I like him as an outside corner. I think that's where that length will play best. You move him on the inside because he's not big. 6'3" is tall.
But he's 208.
True,
That'd
but
make him the biggest safety on the team.
Minus Jenkins.
I mean, not, yeah. I mean, if he could put on a little bit of weight. The reason I say that is, he's not going to be your sideline to sideline guy, deep cover guy. He's got good range, but he's limited. He's got a 4.7 240. But he's so good at being close to the line of scrimmage, like blitzing, tackling, physical guy. Maybe.
See, anyway. He's a guy, if the team's going to play a lot of cover 2, he's a guy that I'd want as an outside corner, because in a cover 2, the corner's got that flat and the short zone up against the sideline. So you're taking on running backs that are coming out there, tight ends that are coming out there. Sometimes those guys have lead blockers. You got to be able to step up and be physical. It takes the right kind of cornerback, and Roe Torrance is one of those guys. Michael Jackson is one of those guys.
That's true.
And so both of those guys, I think would do well in that role. Jackson's actually a guy that if this team needed a box safety, because they just had a rash of injuries, I would put Jackson in there. He's one of the better tackling cornerbacks you'll see. And at 6'1", 210, like, he's got the body type to hold up as a box safety. And I think that as physical as he is, as good of a tackler as he is, he'd be the guy that I would see likely moved if they had to move someone.
Interesting. And those are the
only 2 corners over 200 pounds on this roster.
Yeah. Well, and that's the group. I mean, how do you feel about the depth at safety this year?
I actually feel okay about it. You've got your 2 starters. You've got your third guy if you want to run 3. And as a team that wants to run super multiple, and they've got a lot of depth at corner, and so you're going to see them wanting to get those corners in there and maybe not the safety so much. really you've got your top three, and then you've got some other guys that, we kind of have to wait and see if there's much there.
So your top three are Jenkins, Love, and Wallace.
Yeah.
And then Kobe Bryant, if he turns out.
Yeah, but he's also
And that
a guy
would be
he's a guy that's super, super multiple because he can play corner. I mean, he is a corner trying to play safety. And then you have a guy like Sutherland, who is just a true, like, that guy is just a safety, and a good athletic one. And then eventually you're going to get Jarek Reed back, who can be multiple and play in the back end, play in the slot. Like, you can do a lot of stuff with him the same way you do with Julian Love, the same way you can with Kayvon Wallace. I don't dislike this group. I know you're saying like this might be the second worst group on the defense. Yeah, okay, but that's because the defensive line, the outside linebacker, and the corners are really deep. It's not. It's less of a statement about this group as it is the strength of the other ones. I like this group better than I like the middle linebacker group.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. Yeah. It'll be interesting because you've just basically mentioned 6 players that could make the roster if Jarek Reed was healthy.
Yeah.
And they'll probably end up keeping 4 safeties on the roster and 5 or 6 corners, depending on how the linebacker room looks.
They had 6 safeties on Baltimore's roster last year, mainly because of special teams. But they played 3 of them all the time. But then they had 3 others that filled in for injuries and played special teams.
So do they keep 3 linebackers?
Oh God, I hope not.
So if they had 3 linebackers, 6 safeties, and 5 corners, is that how that would play out?
I hope they don't keep 3 middle linebackers. You're one injury away from, not having.
Well, I mean, you'd have to have somebody on the practice squad, obviously, but you have to make those sorts of decisions. Those decisions have to be made because I don't think that we have to match Baltimore in keeping 6.
No, but
safeties.
I'm just saying that
seems kind of weird.
It is. Pete Carroll did that a lot, where he had a lot of safeties, like more than you'd think you'd need, but he did it entirely for special teams. He wanted guys that had the speed of a defensive back and could tackle. And so he always kept more safeties than seemed to fit because of special team stuff. No, I just brought it up the Baltimore part because that's what we know, right? I mean, all we know is what McDonald had in Baltimore, but he didn't make any of those choices in Baltimore. He just had to use the players that he was given. He didn't have any choice on who those players were. So it's a little bit different now.
The hard part is, Keith, when we get to our next position group, our last position group we're going to cover, it gets really hard.
It gets really hard.
We've got at least 5 starters that are veterans, and then we drafted 2 guys. So somebody is going to go. Mm-hmm. And there's 3 or 4 other guys there that have a shot that Boykin and Whitaker have been hanging around. They picked up a couple undrafted guys, Torrance and Johnson, but Nehemiah Pritchett and DJ James were well thought of in the draft and are on this roster. So you might be able to get away with cutting one of those guys, but you're not going to cut both those guys.
No. You're looking at getting a guy like trying to trade a guy like Trey Brown. If you want to keep both of those guys, or Mike Jackson, what I mean? Like you're in that realm where you're like, okay, we've got our starters, we've got our third, we've got guys that we can move around, we've got our developmental prospects, and we just have too many corners. We can't keep 7. So we got to cut one loose.
Yeah. Interesting. I hope Tariq Woolen comes along. if Drake Woolen comes into camp and he's the same player he was last year, he could be a casualty. Not a cut, maybe, but a trade or flip for a mid-round draft pick.
No, I doubt it.
I doubt it too, but
they're talking him up a lot this offseason.
He's a player with so much potential. I mean, that makeup speed alone is worth keeping on the roster.
Yeah. And basically what they said is they just need him. They want him to be more physical and be a better tackler.
And he was hurt last year. He got injured early and missed a little bit of time. And I think that was a shoulder or something like that. And he was afraid to hit anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. All right. That's the show. Next week, we will come back and do corners. And that'll be it for looking at position groups. And then we're going to make an appearance on the Seahawks Forever podcast with Dan Viennes to talk about everything, how it all comes together, all the position groups, all the schemes, all the coaching, all that kind of stuff. So that'll be a fun show too. So we'll look forward to that. All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your major podcast platform and our YouTube channel. And we'll talk to you soon. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.